Hey guys, this is John, and I'm playing raamkrissh in the 15-minute pool on ICC. This opponent is rated 2014, and I'm opening with knight f3. Let's play g3 on move 2. I've been experimenting with this King's Indian attack move order lately, so let's give it a whirl and see how it goes. I'm going to check my opponent's stats real quick. He's got a Batman avatar. He's played about 2,600 games in the 15-minute pool, peak rating of 2091. And he's adopting a Grunfeld-like setup, establishing a pawn on d5. I can try to hit at that pawn with c4, but I think I'll play d4 instead. And then after black castles, I'll play b3. This is the course of the game I had with this user Dirigo, posted just yesterday in the Blitz category. And I believe he played knight e4 in that game. c5, also a reasonable move. Against c5, I'm trying to recall if I should play bishop b2 or reinforce with e3. I probably do not want to take the pawn because that would open up this long diagonal leading right towards my rook on a1. Whenever you're playing against fianchettoed bishops, you have to be aware of moves that unleash your opponent's bishop and make it a true force on the diagonal. So I think I'm leaning towards e3 right now to simply defend and be able to replace the d4 pawn with the e3 pawn should black capture. If bishop b2, black can take it, and I would have to recapture with a piece, which I don't think is so desirable. So yeah, let's play this move. My plan is to play bishop b2, knight bd2, and just complete my development. There will probably be an exchange of the c5 pawn for the d4 pawn. Again, I don't want to initiate that trade, at least not until I've played this move, because, again, that bishop is going to attack the rook on a1 with a move like knight e4 if I did take. As always, I'll try to watch my time. I'm back from London now, and the tournament I played in London, the London Chess Classic FIDE Open, really reinforced in my head how important it is to have good time management in chess, and this applies to any time control. When you have good time management, things always just seem to flow better. You can kind of tell your form based on whether you're getting in time pressure consistently or not, I think. Okay, knight e4, so black does play this move. I could play knight bd2. Knight c3 looks artificial, so I think I would prefer knight bd2, all things considered. If knight bd2, can black play a move like bishop g4, though, and pin me? Maybe I should exercise some caution. Queen c1 is kind of interesting, defending the bishop and also getting out of any pin potential. Knight e5 could also be played. Jumping to the center, offering a trade for this knight. That move looks appealing the more I stare at it. Yeah, let's go for knight e5. I'm mostly trying to rule out bishop g4. I think knight e4 in conjunction with bishop g4 would have been awkward, creating that pin on my queen on d1. So now black can't do this anymore. Takes on d4 with the pawn. Probably I'll take back with my pawn. I could take on c6 first, but why do that? Yeah, let's just recapture. So if knight takes e5, d takes e5, my queen will be able to help attack the d5 pawn, and also black's bishop will be somewhat buried. So he plays queen c7 instead. Now this knight is attacked 3 times, so presumably I'll have to capture on c6 or reinforce it with a move like f4. f4 creates a more permanent outpost on e4 for black's knight. So if I were to play that move, even though it does help defend on e5, I have to bear in mind that I'm giving this knight a very nice square to work with on e4. Although, in reality, I mean, do I really want to play f3? If a scenario comes about where f3 would be my prime consideration to get rid of this knight, I would be blocking in this bishop. So this could be something of a trade-off. Play f4, gain more control over e5, but at the cost of never being able to play f3. I don't think knight takes c6 is so great, though. If knight takes c6, pawn takes c6, black looks perfectly fine to me. Yeah, so let's do f4. And if he wants to play f6, he can be my guest, because then he would have to block in his bishop. So we'll see how this shapes up. Maybe he'll consider playing f5 and supporting this knight on e4. Yeah, if f5 is played, I'd probably be looking at having to develop my knight to c3 or d2 and trade it for that knight on e4. I probably would not want to play bishop takes e4. I don't think trading my light square bishop for this knight is a good plan. Bishop f5 he plays. He's considering playing g4 against this move, but tactically, does it work? So g4, yeah, it should be fine. The bishop would have to retreat to, say, e6 or maybe d7, and then I could continue with knight d2. But if knight d2, then he can trade, and then g4 would be kind of loose, wouldn't it? Let's say g4, bishop e6. Would I even consider bishop takes e4 then? Maybe I would, because he'd have to take with the pawn. d5 I don't think is quite working, but maybe queen e2 instead, something like that. I could also play queen e2 right now, trying to postpone the development of this knight, and look to threaten g4 instead. Maybe that's a better way of handling this. What if queen e2, knight takes e5, f takes e5, and then something like, say, h5 to rule out g4? Then it might be hard for me to develop, because black's queen will be staring at the c2 pawn, and also they'll have good control over c3. g4 is certainly the most forceful move right now, but I'm not sure it's best. But nor does queen e2 look that great. Queen e2, there's also queen b6 to reckon with, just attacking d4. What if I play g4, and then after the bishop moves, just play knight d2? How does that shape up? I already mentioned that line. He could trade and then take on e5 and take on g4. Now I'm repeating myself. Although d5 could be loose in the end, couldn't it? Okay, I'm going to play g4. As usual in these games, like, you can't calculate everything. It's a 15-minute game with no increment, so you're just going to have to make a judgment call in certain moves. And he drops back to d7. I thought bishop e6 was more likely, but he prefers d7. So what about queen e2? Or knight takes d7. Maybe I grab the bishop pair. Knight takes d7, queen takes d7. Still hard to develop, though. I got to watch this d-pawn at all times. I think I'll play queen e2. Again, I'm not thrilled about knight d2 yet, so let's err on the side of caution and just attack this knight. Maybe we can get him to play f5, after which we could push past with g5 and close it up. We'll both have outposted knights. f5 should be a good reply for him. I am threatening to win a pawn with bishop takes e4. I had to wait a really long time to get paired in this game. I think the pool might be a little bit dead right now. I haven't played for a couple weeks. I'll have to check out the 25-minute pool sometime on ICC. I know Chess Explained has been playing a little bit on there. So takes, which way to take? I mean, almost certainly the f pawn looks most natural, so let's do it that way. If d takes e5, I was leaving this diagonal open. That didn't make me completely comfortable. But now it's going to be important for me to complete development soon, I think. I really need to make an effort to get this knight out, because you can see black is fully coordinated. He hasn't opened the position up greatly yet, so I can count on being okay, at least for now, but I want to get this knight out as soon as possible. Could be tricky, though, because notice I can't use the c3 square so long as this knight is standing on e4. And if knight d2, I always run into queen takes c2. So I may have to eliminate this knight on e4, or I may have to play c4 to try to destabilize the knight by attacking the pawn on d5. So it's possible I'll be looking at having to make another move or two before moving this knight out. Black could try to parlay that into some sort of attack, like playing f6 and opening the king side, or maybe queen c8 right now, attacking g4, because I can't play h3 due to knight g3. I think in a lot of these lines I might be forced to part with my light square bishop, just so I can complete my development. Queen b6 threatens bishop takes e5, but I can probably just sidestep with king h1. Also, maybe knight c3 now. Knight c3, but he could always just trade. There's also knight c3, bishop takes e5. I'd have to calculate whether knight takes d5 is working out for me. It appears to work out pretty well. What about knight c3, just knight takes, bishop takes? I am attacking the d5 pawn then, and I'm coordinated, so that's nice. And the simple move here would be king h1. He's daring me to take a pawn, too. Bishop takes e4. Bishop takes e4, d takes e4. My light squares are going to be in big trouble after that. But maybe I can work my way out of that. It's not out of the question. Also, bishop b5 is a threat, isn't it? But I can always play c4 against that. I kind of want to grab the pawn and just try to call his bluff. If it's a bluff, let's do that. I was talking that I might have to eliminate this knight anyways, so we're going to go for it. So long as he can't coordinate his queen bishop on the light squares, I'm going to be okay. I'm going to need a couple more moves to get out, but I should be okay. I don't think bishop takes e5 works here because, I mean, at minimum I have a move like queen e3 or queen f2. Probably queen f2, actually. Bishop takes e5, idea being to play bishop takes d4 with check. Should I move this bishop away? But yeah, I just don't think it works out for him. Bishop takes e5, queen f2, defending d4. And if he takes my bishop, then I have just d takes e5. Okay, so he was tempted by that line, so yeah, I'm pretty sure this move just refutes his play. There could be something else too, but given that I have 6.5 minutes left, I want to play something simple. And this appears to do the trick. Yeah, I'm going to do it. So we unpin the d-pawn, and we also defend d4 at the same time, and threaten to take his bishop. You got to watch moves like bishop takes e5. Like, it would have been irresponsible for me to play bishop takes e4 without having looked at that move. I don't think I mentioned that move before I played bishop takes e4, but it did cross my mind. And I saw that queen f2 was possible. And for him, he should spend more time before playing that, because now... okay, actually, well, this isn't going to be so easy. So if I take e3 is his idea, isn't it? Oh, well, this could get interesting. e3, and then if queen e2, he has bishop takes g4. Well, I was just saying how we both need to analyze this in more depth, and lo and behold, maybe I missed something. d takes e5, e3, queen e2, he has bishop takes g4. I don't know, but you know what? Okay, d takes e5, e3. I could just play something like queen e1. No, probably queen e1. And if f2, rook f2. Yeah, I gotta go for this anyways. There's not really a choice. So yeah, queen e1. So that on takes, I can play rook f2. Looks like the thing to do. It's kind of awkward though, isn't it? I don't like the way my pieces are situated right now. I'll feel better when this knight is out, I'll tell you that. So yeah, if e2 check, rook f2. Yes, g4 is hanging at all times, but should I get a couple more moves to get coordinated, I'm going to be fine. All right, just knight c3, threatening stuff like knight d5, knight c3, e2 check, rook f2. Everything good on that front? Looks like it. Knight c3, bishop h3, is that a concern? Nah, probably not. Just rook f3. Yeah, that's fine. Under 5 minutes, so let's keep up the pace. Now that this rook is helping out to defend e1, maybe I can play queen g3. And if e2 check, play rook f2, and he doesn't have e1 queen then, since this rook is assisting. So my next move might be queen g3, if I get the chance. A knight d5 also looks really good if I can. Attacking the queen, attacking the pawn, attacking e7. Unless he has something concrete right now, I don't think he's going to have compensation for the piece that he sacrificed. Okay, rook a d8. So what about my intended queen g3? Queen g3, e2 check, rook f2. He has rook d1. That's a buzzkill. So maybe king g2. This is another move I was considering. King g2, just trying to come up to g3 and attack that bishop. Also gets out of a pin. And we walk into rook d2, though, if we play that move, don't we? Rook d2 is really irritating. Okay, rook a d8 was a nice move. King g2, rook d2, king g3. Ooh. Queen c6, something like that. There's a lot to consider there. And knight e2 isn't going to help because he has rook d2 immediately, and my knight will have to move. What about knight a4? Can I play knight a4 and just kick the queen away and then play queen takes e3 next? Why can't I do that? Knight a4, queen moves somewhere. I take on e3. That's got to be the way to go. His queen doesn't have a square where it can help defend this pawn still. He could play queen c6, queen takes e3, queen takes c2, but I always have rook f2, I think, in that case. Or something like that. Yeah, I should be all right. I think I can consolidate. Let's grab this pawn first and foremost. I'm expecting queen takes c2. There's also just rook c1 right now. Attack the queen. My bishop's defended. Is it too early to start thinking about counterattacking? I think so. I think I should play for safety, basically. This move is going to force a queen trade, isn't it? Because he has to go to like d3 or e2 or d2, all of which entail a queen trade. He has 2 pawns for the piece, but getting the queens off the board will increase the margin of safety for my king and should make everything easier. So yeah, let's swap these bad boys. And then I'm thinking rook f2 is good. Just offering a trade. Probably he'll double up. Maybe bishop c3 after that. Encourage a trade. Rook d1's not a big deal. We can just swap. I want all the trades. Get closer to an endgame. I've got enough pawns where I'm not worried about trading down too much, like too many minor pieces. So time is the big factor now. Can I win with 2 minutes and 45 seconds? Quite a committal decision, bishop takes e5. I must confess, as you heard me explaining, I didn't see all the ramifications of the pawn coming down to e3. I didn't see e3 at all, actually. I just assumed that after queen f2, I was going to win a piece. Looks like it turns out well for white, but I kind of backed into that a bit. But I feel so did he. All right, so he just retreats. Maybe rook e1. I want to get coordinated again. Bishop e4 also looks kind of nice. Ah, but that drops this pawn. Yeah, probably rook e1. So just overprotect the e-pawn. It was kind of a weakling, and maybe I can play bishop b4 and knight to c3. Okay, that bishop move I should probably just rebuff with this. Attack it. Looks fine. Bishop g4, rook g3. Attack the bishop again. Rook f4 also playable. Maybe rook f4. Rook f4 is more active. Let's do that. Might want my rook attacking the pawn on f7 as well. You never know. Maybe I should just play knight b2 next. I might want to do that instead of this bishop b4 plan. Knight b2 is kind of a nice idea because it covers all these squares. d3 and d1. Minute 55, so again, still got to play fast, but looks like we're on the path to consolidating right now. Knight wasn't doing anything on a4, so it's time to move. g5, okay, so he's playing kind of forcefully. Let's bring this back. Does he want to keep pushing? Bishop h3 and g4, something like that. If he plays h4, I have rook g2, so that's not good for him. That kind of weakens the dark squares, does it not? Sort of want to play rook g2 anyways right now. But I also want to get my knight involved. Okay, let's do this move first and play around with the idea of h3. I'm not worried about leaving the back rank because it is covered. Yes, bishop f5 though. Maybe I should have played rook g2 on the previous move. I think I should have. I also wonder if he could play b5 and try to restrict my knight at some stage. He's going to play his king up. Okay, well, let's go here now. Now suddenly h3 looks quite strong. And if his king comes up to the 6th rank, then I always have rook f6, right? Rook f6 check. I don't need my rook on
check
f2 necessarily, so what are you going to do about this followed by h3? If he goes to h7 right now, he loses f7, so I think king here to g7 is forced. I think just this now. Yeah, I don't think he should have pushed his kingside pawns like he did. That was not a smart decision. So now after bishop f5, we take g5. h5 is also falling. We're somewhat abandoning our king in doing so, but his king is so weak that I don't think it matters. We also might even sack on f5 if necessary sometime.
Check.
Right, so let's just gather this pawn. No use in thinking about that. Here I have bishop b4 check, king e8, rook g8, king d7, rook takes f7. Lots of stuff is falling for him there. So probably that's good. Yeah,
check.
Let's give it check. Can also maybe keep him contained. Like, what if I play rook g7 next? That's getting a little fancy, though. I should probably just check on g8 and bank the material.
Check.
In time pressure, you can't really
Check.
afford to get too fancy with your play.
Check.
So let's just do this. Okay, now let's just force a trade of the rooks. Now we're up a clean piece. We won 2 pawns back in that equation, so we're up 3 points of material, and he has no counterplay. And strictly speaking, there's other ways to play that, but like I said, you got to choose the simplest way when you're in time pressure. There's no excuse for doing otherwise. Okay, let's just anchor the bishop here, maybe bishop b8 eventually. I played h4 just to fix this pawn on a light square. I want to attack it with my knight. Maybe get my king up to g5 and then maneuver the knight so as to attack that pawn. Go here, stop his king from coming in. And now it's essentially like we're playing with an extra piece. So, because we are playing with an extra piece. John's philosophical comment for the day. Here it's essentially like we're playing with an extra piece, because we actually do have an extra piece. Okay, we can maneuver this knight virtually anywhere. c5 just looks pretty good, so I'm going to do that. And then probably start advancing the pawns, like a4. Yeah, I guess I'll, well, okay, I'm going to play b4 first. I got to hurry. I drop a2, but I'm taking b7 if he takes that, so. And then I'm going to bring my knight back to c5, and he won't be able to defend both of those points. I should play king g5. I don't know why I'm not playing king g5. Yeah, so now let's do it. And how's he going to hold everything together? Here I can maneuver my knight to f6 and take h5. I'm being a little loose and liberal with my time management, but this is what happens when you're playing without increment. Just bring this back. I can almost pre-move. I mean, it's very tempting to just start pre-moving because he has hardly anything he can do. Okay, this move I can pre-move. If king h8, I have bishop f8. That's a rather cute checkmate after bishop g7. Unstoppable. Now he wishes he could sweep away all the pieces, because he'd be stalemated, but he's got a bishop and a b-pawn that can still move, so he resigned. Okay, so I spent a little time in the opening. I think I was fortunate that he played bishop takes e5. He should just recapture the bishop, I believe, but he might have compensation after that. I gotta look this line up, because I know b3 is a move, and I know that c5 is also a reply. I'm not too inspired by the position I got in the game, though. It somehow looked unstable for me. I was behind in development. Let's go and take a look, though. So black is the first to play d5, but we soon establish a symmetrical position. So I think the critical move for white is c4, which leads to some theory. Some Grunfeld, almost Catalan-like positions. But I played in a more relaxed fashion with b3, just looking to fianchetto. Let me turn on the engine here. Not sure how much the engine is really going to help. You can see it already prefers black, but like I said, I know this has all been played. Yeah, e3 might not be the way to go, but the engine seems to think it's all right. Knight e4 is a good move, so now his bishop is pointed at the d-pawn. He also defends c5 with the knight. I played knight e5. The engine says I should just do this. I was worried about bishop g4, though, because I thought it would be hard to eliminate his knight when he can always recapture and pin my knight on f3. So knight e5, he took d4, I took back. Queen c7. And he's done a good job so far. He hasn't been moving super fast, but he's just making natural moves, and his position's okay. Yeah, I had a feeling when I played f4 that my position was going to be somewhat sketchy for the next few moves because I'm behind in development. I'm opening up my king. I'm giving black a perma outpost on e4. So that's committal by me already. The engine thinks he played it fine. Bishop f5. Here I play g4, chasing the bishop. So it's important to realize that I can't play knight c3. Because if I do, he takes on c3 and then takes on e5, uncovering the queen, attacking the bishop. So that's one reason why my development is hampered here. Likewise, knight d2 I think is always risky because that pawn on c2 was a constant problem. I mean, just one line that I think I mentioned during the game, like this would leave the pawn here loose. Maybe d5 is also loose, and that's why the engine thinks this is fine for white. But there were at least a couple junctures, especially when I had my queen on e2, where I just couldn't play knight d2 because queen takes c2 was the refutation. So g4, he moved the bishop back to d7. Somehow I thought e6 would be better because it supported d5. The computer also likes that for black. And here, c4, trying to destabilize the knight by attacking d5 is worth consideration. I think I played queen e2, is that right? Yeah, queen e2. Well, queen e2 has a similar goal. It's just a more direct one, trying to attack the knight twice. Whereas c4 is more like you're undermining that support, right? You're undermining the structural support, the pawn on d5. And given that I might be able to play knight c3 behind if necessary, that's a more harmonious arrangement, having the c-pawn in front of the knight that might come to c3. So yeah, I see the value in playing c4. There's something about having 4 pawns on the 4th rank and also being behind in development that scares me, but it looks all right. I don't see how black is going to punish me here. So queen e2, and he took. Seems okay. Yeah, the engine really dislikes queen e2 now. I didn't take with the d-pawn because I didn't want to open up this diagonal towards my king. Queen c5
Check.
is not fatal after king h1, but I think f takes is the more natural recapture. Yeah, and right here, this is probably where black can improve. The move I thought he might want to try here is f6 and offer a trade of the f-pawn for the e-pawn. Not even offer, more like demand a trade of the f-pawn for the e-pawn and try to open lines. Get the rook working down the file. This scares me much more than what happened in the game because here I can also try to play to win the e4 pawn, but doing so would probably be suicide after f takes e5. I'm going a long ways to just try to win one pawn. Like say I take here and he takes with the rook and I take here, he's just going to kill me somehow. Like, yeah, bishop c6, you can already see it's virtually over. Check. Let's just say king h8, that looks natural. I have to complete my development somehow. I don't know, let's say knight d2, take. Yeah, on the open board, I'm not going to last very long. I've already burned my bridges by playing moves like g4. Yeah, so had he played f6, I think I would have been in some significant danger. I would not have liked to see that move. I'll have to check this setup, like I said, because my play was not convincing. I think maybe starting with knight e5, that move already loosens my position. Probably just knight bd2 is what I should do. Anyways, if we go forward a little bit, so he played queen b6, x-raying my king and threatening bishop takes e5. I took on e4. The engine says just sidestep king h1. Yeah, I would have done that, but again, I was worried about f6. I felt like I kind of had to force the play because f6 was coming. It's not as bad as on the previous move, apparently, but it's still looking good for black. So if he had simply recaptured here and dared me to take this pawn, I think he would have got excellent compensation. Yeah, something like f5. Again, striving to open the position. Note that this does not drop the bishop, because if check, he can block here, and the queen is supporting e6. So he played bishop takes e5 instead, and yeah, he spent a little bit of time on this move, so he did calculate it to some extent, but I'm pretty sure he missed queen f2. I would be surprised if he played bishop takes e5 knowing I can play queen f2. And by the way, that whole idea of pushing f6 is just thematic. That's like textbook for a position where you've sacrificed a pawn, but you have a huge lead in development. If we can just go back to that position for a second. I mean, it should come as no surprise that black wants to play a move like this, allowing me to try to win e4, but looking towards open lines, the pair of bishops, that's all in line with how you want to play when your opponent is clearly going for material and you have an advantage in development. And even just thinking in those terms is helpful in your games, like making that mental shift, like saying to yourself, I have a lead in development here. My opponent is trying to be greedy. What should my game plan be? And then you'll cue yourself in and say, oh, John said in this video against raamkrissh that I should try to open lines. And you'll remember and you'll win the game, because that's how it works. Yeah, so bishop takes e5, and now this neat move, queen f2. Take and take. But again, I didn't see e3. Like, this muddies the waters. If black doesn't have e3 here, they're just down a piece for virtually nothing. But e3 is nice, because now the queen has to move, and I constantly have to be alert for e2 check. Looks like I played all right. Queen e1. And e2 check doesn't gain much here, because just rook f2. And this pawn should perish pretty soon, especially after knight c3. I can even take it with my knight. So he did the correct thing. He took on g4. I went knight out. And he played rook a d8. Yeah, and I'm glad I found knight a4, because if I don't have knight a4, there's some difficulties. With rook a d8, he covers d5, and e2 followed by rook d1 is always hanging in the air. So for instance, I mentioned that I would like to play queen g3 so that after check I could play rook f2. This works fine if he doesn't have a rook on d8, but if he's able to play rook d1, I'm toast. Or I'm at least much worse, because, yeah, I gotta... If I take with the knight, he can actually push past and make a queen, and I can't take that queen. That's kind of funny. So I'd have to take with the rook. And then he takes, knight takes, bishop takes, and suddenly black is just up a pawn. And I have a very open king. But knight a4 is a nice resource, because now his queen cannot defend the e-pawn, and pushing e2 check just runs into knight takes b6. And white's up too much material after this. I'm just up a rook for a queen. Queen for a rook. Yeah, so he started playing a little bit quicker now. I think that's correct. He realized that on the board he's probably losing, so he wants to try to pressure me on the clock since I burned a lot of time. And I'm just looking to simplify. Trading the queens is a big help because now there's not as much danger to my king. There's not any fear of a direct mating attack. I think he got kind of sidetracked by his bishop plus kingside pawns. He maybe had it in his head that he has a 4-2 majority on the king side and he should therefore push it. But I think my conversion path would be complicated if he just left these pawns as is and made a real effort to just not expose them. And especially with the amount of time I had, if he just kind of sits tight here and forces me to try to outplay him and win versus like giving me clear targets to attack when he played his g-pawn and h-pawn forward, that would have been a lot tougher with basically 2 minutes on my clock. h5 is probably fine, but yeah, like g5, I really dislike that move. I don't think that's a good idea for him. Maybe play on the queen side. Like, yeah, b5 is a move I talked about in the game, and the engine also advocates because it stops knight c4, restricts my knight. This knight really can't go anywhere right now. I'd have to work pretty hard to reintroduce it to the action. But instead he did this. Even e6, like that weakens his dark squares. So now like maybe I could snake my bishop in at some point. The engine doesn't like that either. Here I could have played knight c4. Maybe trying to come here. I was liking my knight on b2 for now because I thought that really shut down his rooks, being unable to use d3 or d1 ever. But I'm not going to claim that I played this perfectly because clearly there's a lot of moves I can improve on. Here I think he should have played bishop f5 right after I played rook e3 because it should click for him that rook e3 is threatening rook g3. That's, I think, the only reason to play this move, rook e3. So if he had played bishop f5 and then I come here, at least then he could play g4 and keep all his pawns together. But as played king g7, I get to come over, and now h3 is just getting too much for white. I'll win that g5 pawn. I don't think he can stop me. Yep, this didn't help either. I come in with check. Yeah. probably should play bishop f5, but I think it's going to be a
Check.
similar story after this. It's just going downhill for black.
Check. Check.
And right here, if I had more time in a serious game, I would have stopped to think how I can win this in the easiest way. Like rook g7 was a move I thought about, just attacking here. And the point is, if he puts a rook on d7 to defend that, I just mate him on g8 because he's taken away his flight square, like this.
Checkmate.
But given that I had like basically a minute at this point,
Check.
I just wanted to choose
Check.
a route with the least
Check.
risk where I can get pieces off the board. So even though rook g7 was objectively stronger right here, I'm going to have to calculate more if I play that move. At least I think so. And I know, on the other hand, that I could just play rook g8, take on f7, trade a pair of rooks, and I'm almost
Check.
home free to a victory. And don't beat yourself up over these moments. I've said this before, but like if I loaded this into the Lee chess engine, it would tell me that
Check.
rook g8 check is a mistake because on rook g7 I was +6, whereas
Check.
after rook g8 I'm only +3.5 or 4. But don't listen to that. Like White's advantage has already reached decisive proportions. It's silly to think of that as a mistake, even
Check.
though the computer will tell you it is. Don't beat yourself up over that.
Check.
And here he should probably take with a king to keep stuff on board, although I guess he would lose this pawn maybe. I mean, it's lost in any case, but now I was able to get the pair of rooks off the board after rook f8, and yeah, it's just cleaning up here. Again, I don't think I played this perfectly by any means. I looked over at my clock now, and I was like, oh, I've got 30 seconds left. As soon as he played, I guess I couldn't do it here. I was going to say, as soon as he played king f7, I should come into g5, but my knight is hanging right now. Knight f6 would have been an easy move, though. Attack d5 and also h5. As played, I kind of brought my pawns up and then got into g5 and started attacking his h-pawn and just won the game.
Check.
Okay, so yeah, if I want to repeat this opening, I'll have to do some more work on it. This is not a line I'm really willing to play over the board quite yet because I don't think I know enough, and nor am I sure it even brings an advantage to White. But for shorter time controls, it's interesting. And I think raamkrissh played fine in the opening. I think he maybe should have looked at ideas with f6, especially right around here. I think that would have put me under a lot of pressure. And also, bishop takes e5 should be calculated longer. I really don't think he saw all the ramifications of this move. And after this, we're committed to a position where black has sacrificed a piece, but it appears White is able to get the better of it and defend with accurate play. Anyways, hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I'll be back again soon with another one. Thanks for watching, guys. Bye.